Maria jolted awake as her alarm rang loudly. She had overslept. The clock read 6:55 a.m. and she had just 30 minutes to get ready and leave for Port Harcourt. She rushed through her morning routine, barely pausing to breathe. As she grabbed her bag, something inside her told her to pray. She hesitated. She was already late. I will pray in the bus, she thought, but the feeling grew stronger. With a sigh, Maria knelt by her bed and muttered a short prayer. Lord, protect me on this journey, she whispered. She rushed out, making her way to the bus stop in Okigwe. The city was waking up, traders settling up their stores, and buses honking impatiently. Pedestrians rushing about. At the terminal, she spotted a 14-seater coastal bus headed to Port Harcourt. She quickly paid her fare and took a seat near the window. She exhaled, relieved to have made it in time. The driver checked the passengers before starting the engine. As the bus pulled onto the highway, Maria looked out at the brightening sky. She had no idea that this would be the most unforgettable journey of her life. The bus moved steadily, passengers settling into their seats. Some chatted, others scrolled through their phones, where a few stared out the window, lost in thought. Maria, feeling a deep sense of gratitude, began humming a worship song. Her voice was soft but filled with emotion. A few passengers turned to glance at her. Some looked indifferent, where others seemed annoyed. Undeterred, she continued. She felt a strong urge to pray out loud. Clearing her throat, she spoke. Let's say a short prayer before we go. It's important. Laughter erupted from the back of the bus. A group of young men chuckled. Auntie, this is not church, oh. One of them mocked. A lady in the front seat shook her head. I beg, let everyone face their own, she muttered. Maria felt a sting of embarrassment, but she refused to back down. She closed her eyes and prayed silently, asking for God's protection over the journey. When she finished, she whispered, Amen, and leaned back into her seat. The driver tuned up the radio, drowning out the moment. The bus sped along the highway, and the journey continued. The road stretched before them, an endless ribbon of asphalt cutting through the lush Nigerian countryside. The bus rumbled on, overtaking slow-moving trucks and swerving around potholes. Vendors lined with roadside, waving snacks at passing vehicles, their voices lost in the hum of engines. Maria watched the scenery pass by, her mind wandering. She thought about her family, the job interview waiting for her in Port Harcourt, and the strange urgency she had felt to pray that morning. She shook off the thoughts and closed her eyes. As the journey stretched into hours, her exhaustion took over and she drifted into a sleep. The world around her faded, replaced by strange visions, flashes of bright lights, the stretch of tires, a deafening crash. She felt weightless, as if floating in an abyss. Suddenly, a loud bang shattered the silence. Maria woke with a start, heart pounding, but it wasn't a dream. The bus lurched violently. Screams filled the air. The sound of metal crushing against metal echoed in her ear, and then darkness. Maria's senses returned slowly. A sharp pain shook through her leg, but she was alive. She opened her eyes to a nightmare. The bus was unrecognizable, its metal frame crushed like paper. The stench of burning rubber and fuel filled the air. Bodies lay scattered, lifeless. Some still strapped to their seats, others thrown onto the highway. The silence was chilling. Maria gasped, shaking as she realized she was the only one moving. She clutched her chest and her breath shallow. She willed herself to move, crawling out of the wreckage. The road was very quiet, except for the distant sound of approaching sirens. Maria staggered to her feet, her legs trembling. God, why? She whispered. Tears streamed down her eyes. In the distance, a police van skidded to a halt. Officers rushed forward, assessing the scene. One of them spotted Maria and ran to her. Are you okay? His voice was urgent. Maria could only nod, unable to process what had happened. The police officers moved quickly, pulling bodies from the wreckage, but there were no other survivors. The grim reality settled in. She was the only one left. A female officer wrapped a blanket around Maria's shoulders. "You are lucky," she said softly to Maria. Lucky? Maria didn't feel lucky. She felt numb. As she watched them carry away the lifeless bodies, survivor guilt tormented her. She thought about the passengers, the young boys who had laughed at her, and the woman who had dismissed her prayers. They were all gone, just like that. A police van pulled up, and an officer gestured for Maria to get in. "We will take you somewhere safe," he said. Maria nodded, climbing in without a word. As the van drove off, she stared out at the wreckage, unable to comprehend how she had survived. The police drove Maria to a small clinic for examination. A nurse checked her vitals, confirming she had no serious injuries, just minor bruises and shock. As she sat on the hospital bed, the weight of what happened hit her like a wave. Tears rushed down her cheeks. She clenched her fist. Why me, God? Why only me? The question burned her in her mind. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. The officer from earlier stepped in. "You are clear to go, ma," he said. He offered to drive her to her family house in Port Harcourt. The ride was quiet. Maria's heart was heavy. As they neared her destination, she whispered, "Thank you, officer." The officer nodded. "Just thank God," he said, and she thanked God for Johnny Mercy. The police vehicle pulled up in front of Maria's family home in Port Harcourt. It was a modest house, painted cream with a small garden in front. Before she could step out, the front door burst open. Her mother ran towards the car, her wrapper tied horribly round her waist. "Maria!" she cried, clutching her daughter in a tight embrace. Maria didn't realize she had been holding her breath until she felt the warmth of her mother's arm. Her father stood behind her, silent but teary-eyed. Her younger sibling peeped from the doorway, their faces filled with concern. "What happened?" her father finally asked as they led her inside. Maria sat in the living room, surrounded by her family. She took a deep breath and began narrating everything, from the bus ride, the praying she had, the laughter from the passengers, and the terrifying accident. Her voice trembled as she recalled waking up in the wreckage, the scary silence of death surrounding her. Her mother wept, her hands clasping in gratitude. "God saved you," she whispered. "It's a miracle." Maria nodded, but the guilt still sat heavy in her heart. Why had she survived while everyone else perished? And with that, Maria embraced her mother as they felt lucky and grateful to God for sparing Maria's life. Maria was invited to speak in a church conference filled with people. As she walked off the stage after narrating her testimony, she was ready to continue her journey, one prayer at a time. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content. See you next time.